A student studied for 6 straight hours, the night before her final exam. She read every note. She highlighted every page. She went to bed feeling completely ready. She failed. Not because she was lazy. Not because she was not smart enough. But because nobody ever told her that everything she was doing was wrong. And right now, millions of students around the world are making that exact same mistake, studying harder than ever, and still getting results that do not reflect the effort they are putting in. This video exists because that needs to stop. These are 5 study techniques that Harvard students actually use, backed by real science, and by the time this is over, you will never study the same way again. The first technique is called spaced repetition, and to truly understand why it works, you first have to understand why cramming silently destroys every student who relies on it. Every student has lived this moment. It is past midnight. The exam is hours away. The desk is covered in notes. 6 hours of studying are already done, and there is this overwhelming feeling of confidence, like everything is locked in, like tomorrow is going to go perfectly. Then the exam happens. It goes okay, barely passing. And 2 weeks later, every single thing that was studied has completely disappeared. Gone. Like those 6 hours meant absolutely nothing. That is not a memory problem. That is a strategy problem. Cramming floods the brain with information all at once, and the brain, unable to process all of it as urgent, quietly discards most of it the moment the exam is over. Spaced repetition is the direct opposite of that. Instead of studying something once for a very long time, the material is revisited multiple times, across multiple days. Day 1, it is learned. Day 2, it is reviewed. Day 5, it is revisited again. 1 week later, it is covered once more. Each time the brain encounters that information again, it treats it as something worth keeping permanently, and the memory grows stronger with every single return. Dr. Tracy, who teaches at Harvard, confirms this is how memory works at the neurological level. The free app Anki was built entirely around this principle. Cards are created, and the app decides exactly when each one needs to be reviewed, based on how well it is known. Medical students use it to retain thousands of drug names. Language learners use it to build entire vocabularies. The principle never changes. Short sessions repeated consistently over time will always, without exception, outperform one long exhausting session the night before. The second technique is active recall, and it is the most powerful and most ignored study habit in existence. Most students follow the same pattern without ever questioning it. Notes are read. Notes are reread. Important sections are highlighted. Highlighted sections are reread again. The session ends with a feeling of total confidence. But here is the reality. Recognizing something when it is placed in front of you is completely different from being able to retrieve it on your own. Harvard psychologist Jesse is direct about this distinction. Familiarity is not knowledge. Reading a page and feeling like it registered is not the same as actually knowing the material. Real knowledge only exists when information can be pulled from memory independently, with no notes, no hints, and nothing to reference. The difference becomes clear with a simple comparison. Nobody gets stronger by watching workout videos. Strength comes from lifting the weights. The brain operates by the exact same rule. Reading notes passively is watching someone else do the work. Quizzing yourself is doing the work. So after every chapter, every lecture, every session, the notes go face down. The textbook closes. A blank piece of paper comes out. Everything that can be remembered gets written down from scratch. It will feel hard. It will feel like most of it has been forgotten. That feeling is not failure. That feeling is the entire point. The struggle to retrieve information is what makes it permanent. If the current routine involves rereading and highlighting, that is not studying. Switch to quizzing, and the results will shift noticeably within the very first week. The third technique comes from one of the most brilliant scientific minds in history. Richard Feynman won the Nobel Prize in Physics, and the principle he lived by was simple and uncompromising. If something cannot be explained in plain, simple language, it is not actually understood yet. Harvard's academic advisors teach this same idea directly to their students. When a concept is explained out loud to another person using everyday language, every gap in understanding surfaces immediately and unavoidably. Reading allows for self-deception because recognition feels like mastery. But explaining something out loud to another person is an entirely different test. The explanation will hit a wall somewhere. There will be a moment where the words stop, and the realization hits that a critical piece of the understanding is missing. That moment is not a setback. That moment is the single most valuable part of the entire study session because it shows exactly where the real work still needs to happen. The application is straightforward. Find a friend, a sibling, a classmate, or anyone available, and explain the day's material to them as simply as possible. If no one is around, explain it out loud alone, or record it as though teaching an audience. Harvard study groups are built on this exact practice. Students take turns teaching entire sections of the material to each other, because teaching something and truly knowing something are one and the same. The fourth technique targets one of the most widespread and damaging study habits that almost every student develops without realizing it. During a lecture, the instinct is to write down everything, to capture every word, to fill pages with notes that look thorough and feel productive. But review time comes, and those pages become overwhelming and nearly useless. Note-taking is not transcription. It is active processing. Harvard recommends the Cornell method, where the page is structured into distinct sections, one area for main notes, one for key questions or keywords, and a short summary written from memory at the bottom. This structure forces genuine thinking during the lecture, rather than mindless copying. Concept mapping offers another powerful alternative, placing the central idea at the middle of the page and extending branches outward to connect causes, effects, examples, and relationships between ideas. And at the end of every single study session, spending 5 intentional minutes writing a brief summary entirely from memory immediately transforms note-taking into active recall. Notes do not need to look impressive or feel complete. They need to make the brain work and make later retrieval faster. The fifth and final technique is the one that holds everything else together, and it is the one most students never take seriously until it is too late. Structure, deliberate rest, and honest self-reflection are the foundation underneath every other technique on this list. Knowing 5 powerful strategies means nothing without a consistent system to apply them. Harvard advisors are clear on this. A study schedule needs to exist, and it needs to be treated with the same non-negotiable commitment as a class that cannot be skipped. Time must be blocked, protected, and used with intention. Breaks are not a reward for finishing. They are a required part of the process. The Pomodoro technique, 25 minutes of completely focused work, followed by a 5-minute break, consistently improves both concentration and retention across long sessions. Research from the NIH confirms that short intentional rest periods physically improve how much the brain retains. Sleep is not negotiable under any circumstances. The material studied during the day becomes cemented into long-term memory during sleep, and sacrificing sleep to cram is directly sabotaging the results being worked toward. And when something goes wrong on a practice test, the response cannot be to simply move past it. Every mistake deserves a moment of honest examination. Understanding exactly why something went wrong and what was genuinely misunderstood is the process that creates real, compounding improvement over time. Space out the studying. Quiz yourself without mercy. Teach what has been learned. Take smarter and more intentional notes. Build a real schedule. Protect the rest, and sit honestly with every mistake. None of this requires exceptional intelligence. None of it requires extraordinary willpower. It requires the decision to do things differently, starting today. The results will not arrive overnight, but commit to even one of these techniques this week, and stay consistent. And within 2 to 3 weeks, the difference will be impossible to ignore. Pick the one that feels most actionable right now, and begin. If this video helped, like it, subscribe, and come back for more. See you in the next one.